we are expecting one more panelist for the night, and they will join us shortly. But until then, I will introduce all the panelists we have here today. So going alphabetically, our first panelist for the night is Emma Arrigo. Emma, would you like to quickly introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Emma. So education history. I did my Bachelor of Science at the University of Melbourne. I majored in data science as I couldn't decide between stats or computing, and that was offered. The first year it was offered was when I graduated in 2018, and then just last year I graduated from my Master of Data Science, and now this week I've started working at Amazon Web Services, AWS, as an associate solutions architect in their sort of graduate program. So that's really exciting. And during my studies, I worked at about 2 startups. I also did an internship at AWS the previous year. And I think most notably, my proudest accomplishment, I was the president of Mums in 2017, 2018. So that was really great. And I was involved from my first year and worked my way through the committee, and yeah, really proud and excited to see what's happened to Mum since I left it. It's thriving. I'm very honoured to be back here. So that's sort of me in a nutshell.
Perfect, thank you. And we're so happy to have you back here as well. So our second panelist for the night is Joanna Yang. Joanna, would you like to do a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure, thanks. So hi everyone, I'm Joanna. I studied a Bachelor of Science at MelbUniMaths as well. I started my major in physics, but then I switched over to maths and stats. After that, I did a Master's of Actuarial Science at MelbUniMaths as well. And then at the start of last year, started as a grad at EY in the actuarial team. So in the government and public sector team here in Melbourne. And then been there for coming up to the 1 year anniversary now. Yeah.
That's awesome, Joanna. Thank you for that. And our next panelist is Katie Granger. Katie, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Katie. I've been working at IBM for the past, coming up 3 years. I went to UniMelb for my undergrad and I did my Bachelor of Science in Applied Maths there. And yeah, I've been traveling around a bit with work, which has been fun, but I've been in Perth recently. That's where I am at the moment, staying busy and staying COVID safe, which is what we like to hear, I'm sure. And yeah, it's been an interesting year, but I'm very passionate about female inclusion at IBM and more broadly within technology. So I'm excited to be here.
That's so great to hear that you're so passionate about women in tech, as we are here in Mums too. So, and I would like to introduce our fourth panelist, Rachel, who's Rachel McCullough. I'm not sure if I got your last name right, but we're so happy to have you here. So if you'd like to quickly do an introduction to yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry for being late. I'm really glad I could join. So my name's Rachel. Before I start talking, just checking, is my background the right way around? Like it's not the word. Yes. Okay, great. Tech issues if you join last minute. So my name's Rachel. I finished Master of Maths and Stats at Melbourne Uni last year. So did an undergrad in a Bachelor of Science in Ecology with a diploma of Maths alongside, and then did a Master's of Maths and Stats in Applied Maths. Really enjoyed that, and also was keen to do something in the real world that uses maths and data science. And so did an internship at this small economic consulting firm called Alpha Beta. I really enjoyed that. So I signed up with them as a graduate analyst. They then got bought by Accenture. So now I'm part of Accenture strategy, and I'm an analyst in the Accenture strategy, the strategy arm of Accenture. So working on kind of a lot of strategy policy projects, but always kind of with an emphasis on data and how data can be used to answer those policy and strategy questions.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. So Before I move on to the questions, just to the panelists, I will usually direct a question to one of you, but if the question really resonates with you and you want to add on something, please just jump in because we would really love to hear what you have to say. So just want to put that out there. So with that, my first question goes to Katie. So you studied applied maths in your undergrad. What did you love so much about maths that inspired you to take that major?
Well, so I actually started, so I think it's kind of quite common that people leave university and there's sort of this idea that you do, you know, engineering or you do medicine or you do law, and it's kind of very practitioner focused. But I've always really enjoyed maths, and that was always my skill set. And so I went into university, and I don't know if anybody's done some of the engineering units in first year, but let me tell you, they are not great. So I was put off by those, and I was like, why am I like forcing myself to do something I'm not really passionate about? And I was like, all I want to do is my maths. Like, I love my maths. I find it interesting. I find it engaging. It's like my natural skill set. So I started just picking up more maths units, and I sort of found my people in maths. I had a really great team that we'd all do our assignments until 5 a.m. together, as I'm sure you're all aware. It was definitely a hard, painful slog, but I'm so grateful that I did it because it's really, honestly, a really standout point for me, even now in my career. When I tell people I have a maths background, it's quite impactful, I think. And I think, unfortunately, there's not many women that do it. But also, like, it's a good conversation starter, and you can start talking about things that you're interested in, and it really, like, builds credibility professionally. You know, so I'm really glad that I did it. I really liked my lecturers, and I really liked the way that the course was structured, so that it was, you know, not too lectury and more sort of doing things. I think I'm quite a practitioner and less of a listener. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so I can totally relate in the sense you really do resonate with the subject content more once you've found your skill set. So thank you for letting us know that we shouldn't be afraid to choose a major based on our skill sets rather than employability prospects and choosing a career path so early. And so my next question is to Rachel. So Rachel, you did a concurrent diploma in maths alongside your Bachelor of Science. So why did you take up a diploma in maths in addition to your major?
Great question. I think at the time it was due to indecisiveness, and a concurrent diploma was a great way to add on extra subjects without doing a whole other degree, without going, yeah. So I think that was the main draw card, was just providing options because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I really liked maths, but at the same time I was really enjoying biology after not kind of doing that in high school at all. And I really liked ecology and particularly the quantitative side of ecology. So I was keen to keep going with both, and concurrent diploma just seemed like the best way to fit both in, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. So if anyone's in the same boat about indecisiveness, a concurrent diploma either in like maths or in, I think, IT or computer science is one of the other ones. It's a great way to kind of keep options open.
Great advice there, Rachel. And my next question is sort of a follow-up to what you just said. It's about how you went on to choose your master's. Like, why did you do it in maths instead of ecology? Yeah,
also a great question. I think there was, once I got to third year maths subjects, I suddenly had this feeling like, oh, this is what it's all been building towards. Like, I can see how these tools are used on real problems. And so there was, yeah, just a couple of things in third year maths content that I thought, oh, I want to do more of that. How do I do more of that? Okay, I have to sign up to do a master's. So it was just seeing the culmination of all the kind of toolkit you'd built up in first and second year and seeing it right at the end of third year subjects. So the combination of that and also doing the vacation like research program that the Maths and Stats school does. So getting a chance to actually get to know some of the academics a bit better, and seeing actually what they did and the kinds of research they were doing was really exciting. And so seeing that the options for projects within a master's was part of that. And so I think that's the other key reason is getting an insight into that and saying, oh, okay, it's not what you see in coursework does not necessarily reflect what might be in a thesis project and a research project. There's a lot more flexibility and a lot more scope, as well as applications to problems outside maths, like outside the maths department, pairing with researchers in biosciences or ecology or public health. Like that was really exciting as well. So that was the other factor. That's kind of the two main reasons was seeing the culmination of the toolkit at the end of third year and thinking, there's still so much I want to learn, and also seeing what the research side of it was like through that research internship or the vacation scholarship program.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. Joanna, so you majored in pure maths during your undergrad. How did you end up choosing pure maths?
So to be honest, I sort of fell into it. So in second year, I'd mostly done physics subjects. And then once I decided I didn't really enjoy physics, so I sort of decided halfway through, towards the end of second year, I think I did a few third year physics subjects as well. And my only option left if I wanted to change my major was sort of more pure math subjects, because I hadn't done any probability or statistics at all in second year. So the only sort of math subjects open were those pure math subjects. So I sort of ended up falling into that sort of stream. And then sort of pivoted afterwards back to more applied stuff. So I had to do probability and statistics in my master's program because I didn't do it in my bachelor. And I think the reason for that was just my options coming out of pure maths was, at the time, I thought it was just sort of research. That was sort of the next step. If you're doing lots of pure math subjects, you do a master's and then a doctorate and then a postdoctorate. And that wasn't sort of what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do more applied stuff and get into like a corporate setting and sort of things like that. And so, that's why I pivoted back into applied maths away from pure maths.
That's great. So I think that sort of answers my next question, which is why you went to do a master's in actuarial. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actuarial studies has sort of been on my radar since high school. But I thought I had a stronger interest in science, sort of like physics and a little bit of chemistry. But so I'd always known about actuarial and been thinking about it. My grandpa actually told me that I should study it, but I didn't. I ignored him and didn't listen to him when I first started my undergrad. And then once I was sort of looking at job prospects or what I wanted to do next, sort of actuarial came up again, and I was like, you know what, that like sounds like something I would really enjoy. It's very maths heavy, and I really enjoyed the degree.
That's so good to hear. So Emma, you clearly love data science so much that you have a dog named Data. But you were also involved in MUMS, so you're clearly passionate about maths as well. So can you tell us more about how you like tossed up between those interests and how you ended up choosing your major ultimately?
Yeah, because I guess when I sort of came into uni, I was choosing between physics or maths. But then, physics wasn't really doing it for me. And then computer science sort of got on the scene. And so by doing the first two computing subjects, I got really into that. And so I sort of kept up the maths and the computing, and then was getting to having to choose. And then there was this new data science major that was coming. And so that's sort of why I went down that path, so I could keep up the maths, go down with the stats route rather than the pure maths, which was sort of like where my heart was. I feel my heart is in pure maths, but I was like, I'll go do stats because data science is a really cool area as well. So I do love that as well. So followed the data science path to get best of both worlds of the computing and the stats, and also being able to use like have sort of a benefit over the people who just do computer science, like if you actually understand the maths behind the linear algebra in the machine learning algorithms and things. So I thought that was a sort of a point of difference as well within computer science. A little bit of a thing anyway. Yeah, so that's what I liked about the Melbourne model, is sort of being able to try different things, see what I liked, and then sort of not having to like lock in a major until later on, and something new might come up like data science, and could sort of follow the passions. But yeah, that sort of thing. I guess that's it.
Yeah, I would agree with that Melbourne model point as well. I've met so many people who've really like went down so many different paths before they figured out what they wanted to do.
It was exactly. And there's lots of crossing over. Like I think I could have done 3 different majors going into 3rd year, so lots of flexibility there. Yes, that's a benefit. So you don't have to choose; you can try it out.
Yeah. So going along that, so my next question is to actually all of you. So I would like to hear what each and every one of you has to say for this one. Which is, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is still deciding or doesn't know what kind of maths or maybe even major that they want to pursue? So if anyone wants to go first, or I can name someone as well. Katie?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
So I guess if you're at the point where you don't know what major to decide on, I really think, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, it doesn't really matter. As in, like, just do what you're interested in, what you feel passionate about. And then I once heard someone say, when you follow your passion, remuneration comes naturally. So if you do what you're good at and what you're interested in, your career kind of falls from there. I think where people sometimes struggle is if you force yourself to try and do something that you don't really want to, and then you're into a job that doesn't really suit you and fit. And but I mean, I work with software engineers, I work with people that just did commerce degrees, and that's what I mean by not really mattering. I think it's really great to do maths because, like I said, it's such a selling point and it really does prove some credibility. And everyone's always like, I'm so bad at maths. You know, like, you must be able to add these numbers up really quickly. And I'm like, I actually can't. I feel like I didn't see numbers for the last like 3 years of my degree. But whatever, you know, that's just the way it goes. I would highly recommend doing a degree in maths, and I think it's not always a natural. The extension of that is, I think a lot of women that do maths degrees at a higher rate than men go into teaching, and I think, you know, teaching is a really, really important part of the world, and I have a lot of respect for teachers, but I just think we need to make sure that that's not the only option that people have. And people do see that there are these corporate roles, and there's roles in industry, and there's just a lot of opportunities. But you really have to just be open-minded about it, I think.
That's some great advice there. Would anyone like to add to Katie? Joanna?
I think I'll second Katie's point that your major doesn't really matter once you get out into the real world. Like, there are like people who do physics and study physics, I think, that are like my directors now, and they're like heavily into data analytics, but their undergrad degree was like Bachelor of Physics. Or even I think we have someone who's like did a Bachelor of Arts in Policy, who now does data analytics. So it's just so like varied. Just if you're deciding on a major, just do the subjects that you like, I reckon. And also make sure that you actually can come out with a major. If you jump around too much, you might end up finding that you don't have enough spots for, like, I don't know if that's happened, or if yeah, I think my sister was complaining about she might not be able to find a major if you did one subject more. So that's something to look out for, but definitely follow like what you like, and you'll do better that way as well.
You go, Emma. We both
Okay.
unmuted.
I was just going to say, like, uni is such a really special time as well, that you do just get to study and just sort of enrich this, like, your mind. And so yeah, I'll just say, just do what you love. And as everyone said, jobs will come that's not a stress, but just really do what interests you. You might find something that you've never even considered. Just be really open to the experience and enjoy university. Do I sound like like I'm at work now? I miss just hanging out in South London, those kinds of things. So just sort of enjoy uni while you're there and just take advantage of all the offerings that it has for you. That's really my takeaway.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Emma. My youngest sister just started university first year at Melbourne Uni this year, and so I kind of have secondhand experiencing the excitement. Yeah, the excitement and nostalgia all over again. And I think I guess I'm not sure like the mix of first, second, third year students on this call, but I think my advice to her starting science was one, yeah, of course, like do the subjects that you think are most interesting, or whether that's by, you know, reading the course description or talking to people that have jobs in that field, or talking to academics. Like there's lots of different ways to find out if it's interesting to you, and you should explore them all and choose the ones that sound most interesting. But also there are some strategic decisions to kind of make early on to keep those options open. I think as Joanna alluded to, like I think everyone here is probably interested in doing maths, and so there's no strategic choice to make in terms of should I do maths or not. It sounds like everyone's going to kind of do those, but there are some more. Yeah, so there are some other strategic choices. I mean, like which subjects are going to keep the most options open for me for as long as possible. And I think in science, those things are maths, physics, maybe computer science, like those ones lend themselves to a whole bunch of different majors. So if you can do as many of those as possible, it'll set you up well for decisions later on. Those are only two kind of, pieces of advice. And then, just as Emma said, like get involved in as much as possible. And that will implicitly help you make decisions as well. Like you'll meet other people, like maybe a year or two above you who've done other subjects or know people that, you know, work in certain fields. Like that will implicitly help you with making a choice. So invest time and know the value of that extracurricular stuff as well.
That was some great advice from everyone, so thank you. And just to back up Joanna's point about being cornered into a major, I would recommend going into stop one with their course planning as well as talking to people. So I think that would be the way to go to avoid that. So moving on to our next question. So Rachel, were you, so this sort of goes back to about choosing majors sort of, were you ever concerned from your personal experience, were you ever concerned about employability during university?
I think I was implicitly, and that I was like not quite sure what I wanted to do. And I think maybe students in science are more like this than students in other degrees. Like I think the focus on employment is stronger in other courses, and that students are looking actively for like internships and whatever from first year. I didn't even know that was a thing. And so in like basically whole of undergrad, I was just having a chill time on my summer holidays, and then got to masters and I realized, oh wait, everyone else has done a million internships. How's that going to work? How am I going to compete with that? So I think I did worry about that. But I think I worried about it at the right time. Like I wasn't overly stressed about it early on because I knew, well, I don't actually know what I want to do. There's not really, I personally didn't see a huge amount of value in going for internships or opportunities I just wasn't interested in. I think there was a semester where I tried like bulk applying to a bunch of things and I just like, my heart wasn't in it. So when I suddenly felt, oh, okay, I'm meeting people that I would actually want their job in like student networking events or contacts of friends and academics at uni, like that's when it started to kick into gear. And so that's when I suddenly actually really wanted to invest a lot of time in looking at options and applying. So I don't know if it was super naive of me to not really think about it until it was a pressing matter, but and I don't really know what the key takeaway from that is, but I wasn't overly stressed until I found something that I was really interested in, if that answers the question at all.
Yeah, that's That's great. And I do think that was sort of the right time, because I think if you do apply to things that you're not really interested in, that really comes out during interviews and assessment centers especially. So I do think that's pretty good advice there. So my next question is to Katie. Was there any specific decisions that you made during your studies that help you achieve your current career and your position where you're at right now? You're on mute, Katie.
Hey, yeah, sorry, I've just joined in. So I just was quickly scanning to see if there are any other Katies.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was.
There was another Katie?
Yes, sorry.
All good, goodbye.
Yeah, Katie, Granger, did you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was at uni. I was at a college, one of the res colleges, and I think it was really fun. And I think you know, sometimes that detracted from my studies, to be honest, and I really worried about that. But then I think about the ways that that community really fostered my academics in these really inadvertent ways, like, you know, studying up really late with people is way more fun than like sitting alone crying in your bedroom about, like, you know, a 7 a.m. deadline at 4 a.m. You know, it's just brutal. And I think that sense of community really carries you through not only your studies, but also your career, and that your ability to make that community is what really will set you apart. And so I guess my choice to go to college was one of those things. But if I hadn't been, because I was, I'd moved out of home, if I hadn't gone to college, I probably would have still been really active in some more of the university communities, like mums and all of the great stuff that happens internally. Beyond that, I think my choice to drop engineering when I felt like it was no longer what I was interested in was probably the best choice I made for my career, because I was much more successful in maths. It was more my skill set. And it also kind of teaches you to sort of check in with yourself, I think, when you're going through these different choices that you make sure that you're aligned to what your goals are and what you want out of life. And yeah, and I think that kind of set me up well to be like, well, I'm not going to prioritize what I used to think I should do. I'm going to adapt and I'm going to change it up, instead of just putting yourself in these really rigid structures. Oh, I'm supposed to do this or I have to do this. Like, there is flexibility and there is a lot of opportunity, and there's so many different pathways, and there's no one pathway. We're all on our different paths, and it's just about making sure you empower yourself to make the best decisions for your circumstances, I think. So does that answer your question, Suri?
Yeah. So going back to about getting connected to a community. So my next question actually relates to that. And Emma, so how did your involvement in extracurricular activities like mums help you when you were applying for jobs?
Yeah, I think my experience at mums were things that you don't sort of get in your coursework, such as managing people, like managing, as the president, was managing a committee, was running events, was working with the faculty to run things, and managing sponsors and accounting things. So got exposure to these other aspects that are really useful, employable skills that you don't sort of do in coursework. Like, I think I even used some examples of like running the school maths Olympics and stuff in interviews. So I still was holding on to that experience when interviewing, because it was a big logistical thing, like getting 100 high school students to the maths building to run an event and printing the things and making sure you had 20 volunteers. And at the time it felt like trivial, but then upon reflection, I was like, wow, I did so much. And balancing all that as well as the university work, I think was also really a big, like, I don't know, defining part of my university experience. So I definitely recommend getting involved in some ways. I saw that you have your first year elections. That was something that we introduced in my committee. I think Madeline came up with it anyway. So that was something that we introduced. So I definitely recommend people getting involved taking on those extra responsibilities, it just sort of, you don't realize at the time, but it really is building your employability and your skill set in a fun way, if that sort of answers the question.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the takeaway is to get involved. It will help you not only in interviews, but also make friends and enjoy uni more. So my next question is to actually everyone. So we'll again go around and see what everyone has to say. So this is about how to tailor a maths qualification in a CV. So what I'd like you guys to do is to please give us 2 transferable skills that you got out of your maths degree or your STEM degree. Yeah, so does anyone want to start us off? Joanna?
That's a hard question. I can't really remember what was on my CV. Transferable skills from STEM.
So what I've heard, I'll give you a leg up here. So what I've heard is like research skills, problem solving is what I've sort of some common examples I've heard, logical thinking, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely agree with the logical thinking and the problem solving. That is definitely something that you can spin on your resume. Yeah. Does anyone else?
I'll say, so from the problem solving, I sort of think of it like mathematicians, they have this toolkit of theorems and whatever else to be able to solve an unknown problem that you get on an exam or whatever. So that like really applies to the workforce. Like you have all these past experiences, ways you've dealt with problems, whatever, and you can apply that to a new problem. So I really think that's something that, yeah, is really special in a maths degree, is you have this toolkit of ways to solve problems and you apply it to a new one. So that's sort of like an example of how you do problem solving. Yeah, that's sort of like how sell a maths degree. Like what's cool about a maths degree. You have a toolkit and can apply it to new things.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think these might not be unique to maths, but something that is quite valuable in industry anyway is this idea of like putting structure to a very fluffy, vague statement or problem. And I think, yeah, not to say this is something that's unique to a maths degree, but I think there's something about the way of thinking about a whole system that I think maths students and people with a maths background are uniquely skilled for, like thinking what are all the inputs, what are all the outputs, and kind of mapping the whole problem and putting some structure to something that's quite vague and unstructured at first is quite a valuable skill, and often leads to insights or whatever that people think are interesting, and often it's the value might not be in the insights or output, but just in putting a structure to a vague problem. So that's something I think that math students can sell is that. Yeah, that's probably the main one from my end. And I think the other one, although this might seem really basic and like a low bar, is being comfortable with numbers. Like, I don't know, depending what industry and what job you go into, this might have been mentioned before, people saying like, oh wow, you're a math student, you're able to add these numbers up, and I'm also terrible at adding up numbers in my head, like mental maths.
I know.
Yeah. But math students are comfortable with numbers. So like if you're given a lot of data, a lot of numbers, like it's not a shock to the system. And I think that is although it's a very low bar, it might seem like a very low bar. Yeah, you don't realize
that other people just don't take it for granted that you can just sort of look at a spreadsheet and sort of know what's going on.
Yeah, and not be overwhelmed by it, right? So I think that's also something. So like be familiar and comfortable with working with quantitative things is quite valuable as well in lots of different jobs, quantitative or not.
Awesome. So that's some great points there. I agree with the problem solving. I think we're all trained to sort of look at a problem and immediately note down what we know, what we can do with it, and then where to go from there, which I think it's really valuable out there in the industry. So moving on to the industry, we would love to know what a day in work looks like for each of you. So again, who wants to start us off?
I'm happy to start.
Go for it, Katie.
So I think I work in IBM in the consulting sort of area, so IBM services, and the nature of consulting being that you have projects. A day in the life is quite different. So for example, today I'm working on a New Zealand client, which means they are, I think, 5 hours ahead of me. Yeah, because I'm in Perth. So I got up at 4 a.m, which is a bit brutal, but you know. And then, you know, we have like what they call stand-up. So we work in like agile ways of working, which is kind of a corporate thing, but I really enjoy working that way. It's very fast. It's very focused on product delivery. And then I guess through the day, I kind of just either have, I'd say I generally spend about half my day in meetings. And some of those are workshops, some of those are, you know, interviews. So for example, this week I'm doing lots of interviews to try and align our product strategy to the corporate strategy. And that kind of stuff is pretty standard. The workshops are kind of more fun because they're a bit more interactive. We do sort of user-centric workshops. We look at what we call personas. So those are different people in the business, and we sort of characterize them and then start thinking about what they want and what they need and how we can create a strategy to work towards that. And beyond that, I think it's, yeah, a mix of, you know, I'd say once a week I have a manager meeting, and that's sort of more based on my career development. And then, yeah, but there's also periods of time where things slow down a little bit, and that'll be either between projects or if I'm working on a project and it's kind of ramping down, that can be a bit of a slow period of time. But most of the time I manage to keep myself busy. Yeah, so I think that's me.
Awesome. And Joanna, would you like to go next?
Well, I'll go next. So I'm also working in consulting like Katie, and completely agree. Every day is just so different. Sometimes I will wake up thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be working until so late today. I have so much on my plate. And then actually I'll just, for some reason, everything will get done really early and I'll have a 5 o'clock finish. And other days I'll be like, oh, today will be so chill, don't have that many meetings. And then something will come up at lunchtime that needs to be done now. So it just gets very, very hectic. And every day is just so varied and so unpredictable. Yeah, we'll do quite a few meetings. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of data analytics. So similar to Katie, we'll have a stand-up where everyone in the team just gets together and we talk about what goals we need to accomplish today. And then we just get to work on those and then have meetings throughout the day for whatever we need. In consulting, you're really dependent on the client and when clients get information to you. So sometimes they will provide information pretty quickly. Other times you'll sit there waiting and you'll have a quiet day. But yeah, every day is just so different. But it's great. It keeps things interesting.
That's great. Emma, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I started at this role a week ago, and it's sort of like a graduate program. So the first 6 months is sort of training, getting certifications. So within like AWS services. So yeah, so I'm sort of studying for certs, working on group projects for this first 6 months, and then after I'll be moving into a role of a solutions architect, where that's sort of for those who don't know, you sort of you're sort of like the first point of call for a customer who might want to create a new, I don't know, start using Amazon Web Services, or they might want to, I don't know, do something cool with Amazon. And so they sort of work with the solutions architect to sort of figure out what's possible. And so as a SA, you sort of build proof of concepts and stuff. So a lot of the time would be building on the AWS service, and presenting things to the customer. And yeah, that's from what I gather. So that's in 6 months' time. So you can come back to me later when I'm working as a solutions architect. But right now, it's just sort of studying and yeah, getting used to the AWS platform, which is very fun. It's great. I'm enjoying it so far.
That's so good to hear that you're enjoying your role. Rachel, would you like to tell us about your work as well, please?
Yep. So also in consulting, so general same comment that everything is project specific and changes day by day. I've been on a couple of very data heavy projects, and so I was running a lot of scripts and a lot of models in R, and yeah, a lot of data wrangling and kind of trying to process messy and huge data sets into, synthesize it into whatever information or cuts that you need. So some projects, like I'll just be working in R the whole day and then, putting some things on slides when I have the numbers. Project I'm on at the moment is very not data heavy, much more like policy and strategy oriented. So today, for instance, had, morning check-in meeting, or stand up, as I think you guys have called it. And then we're finalizing a kind of a presentation for the client we're working for tomorrow. So today was just a lot of very quick problem solving, working out what's the best way we can present this information and communicate it well. So today was, very focused on outputs and making slides pretty. So some parts of the job are, of my job, are very opportunities to do a lot of coding and data wrangling and statistical modeling. Other parts are what's the best color I can choose for this slide and what pretty picture or icon can I put on this slide to make it better. So it's a real mix, but enjoying all of it.
That sounds so interesting and sounds like a very good mix of technical and also little details there. So our final question, and again, this is for all of you. What advice would you give female students who are going into male-dominated fields like you have? Does anyone want to start us off?
I'll give it a go.
Oh, Joanna.
So I know some people don't like the be confident thing, but I think I especially notice that I have a massive tendency to hedge and or underestimate my abilities and things like that. And I think I've seen it as well in the workplace. I don't want to make generalizations, but guys would just be more confident in their abilities, or just yes, I can do that, even if I can't, I'm not figure out on the way. And I've definitely held myself back. So that's something that I've been working on and trying to, yes, I can do this, even if I'm not 100% sure I can, and trying to, be more sure and back myself and things like that. And I think that's, partly being confident and just trusting yourself. And when you get into the workplace, everyone is so collaborative, I found. And if you don't know things, if you say you know how to do something and then you realize you can't, there's so many people that you can go and ask questions to. As I suppose that's the second point, just ask questions and don't be afraid to ask questions if you're not sure. And that doesn't mean that you're not good at your job or anything like that. Everyone's learning. So yeah, be confident or back yourself, and then ask lots of questions would be my sort of 2 bits of advice.
Yeah, I think jumping off the back of that, the being confident thing is huge. And I think when you try and hedge your bets on what you're saying, and you try and sort of, say, even if you finish sentences with things like, do you know what I mean? That kind of just language is just such a trap that women fall into more often than men. And I think women are more likely to underestimate themselves, and there's this concept of imposter syndrome where, we don't think we belong, we don't think we're good enough. And you really just have to fight all of that internal monologue, and you have to be active in your language, in the way you speak, the way you present yourself, because, you know, you are on the same level as your peers, so there's no reason for you to think that you don't belong there. And yeah, and ask questions, and it's, I think sometimes what I struggle with is a bit of the boys' club environment can be a bit challenging at times, and I think you kind of come up with strategies for ways to make it work for yourself. You know, you can go to drinks and call things out. I think it's important to call things out that you think are inappropriate, but at the same time, it's hard to be the fun police, and that's like a real thing that I've struggled with. And I definitely think there's strategies, ways to do that in productive ways that isn't being the fun police. Yeah, so it's me.
Thanks, Katie. Would anyone like to follow up with any more advice that they have?
I'd say you definitely deserve to be there. You don't be afraid to like take up space and speak up in meetings, and yeah, don't need to apologize. Be direct with language, and sort of build a community, or yeah, leverage your network with either within the company or externally, for sort of mentors, you know, like just sort of yeah, you just have to be there, build community networks, and yeah, just sort of enjoy it. I don't know. Like these kinds of things are really great, and meeting other women in industry is yeah, you're not alone. I guess is really important to know.
The taking up space because I think there's lots of little strategies, and being direct. There's lots of little strategies, and it seems like trivial, but the more you practice it, the more you start to actually inherently believe it. And one of those things is, yeah, don't apologize. I'm just, you know, only apologize if you're genuinely sorry. I often catch myself saying, oh, sorry for the late reply when it's been like 5 minutes. And so I just have to say like, oh, thanks for reaching out. You know, I always try and replace it with a thank you, so that you're still being polite and respectful. But just, you know, it's just so many women spend their days apologizing. It's so frustrating for us, and it's frustrating for, yeah, seeing our male peers who just, you know, won't reply to me for 12 years, and then they'll be like, why didn't you reach out to me? Anyway, whatever. You know how it goes.
I think my comments are probably a different theme to the other, you know, other comments so far. I think they're all, yeah, really important to recognise that you are very capable and have the right skill set to do, you know, whatever you're going into. But I also think it's really important that you're yeah, taking notice of. Sorry, it's just a bit of feedback. I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, I think it's really important to be aware of environments that make you feel like that. Like, yeah, there's kind of this idea of this book that I read recently called like Stop Fixing Women, and it's about, you know, how like a lot of corporate cultures are around, oh yeah, let's provide these like leadership workshops so women go for more promotions and that kind of thing. And it's like, hang on, that's not really the problem. The problem is the environment itself. So what was really important for me when I was applying for places is, what's the experience of the women that actually work there? What's their reputation with churn? Like, do the women get hired leave again in 6 months? You know, and that's you know, an indicator that something's a bit concerning. And I think one of the, yeah, and so I just think be on the lookout for that, and actively ask. Like, if you're like, you know, thinking about going into a particular PhD program, for instance, or a particular research group, or, you know, a particular company, like, ask about that stuff and be, but don't be afraid to be judgmental, I guess. Like, if you ask, hey, everyone that interviewed me was a man, like, why would I want to work somewhere that, like, you don't have many senior women? Like, why don't you know, feel free to ask about that, and then they should be upfront about whatever policies or strategies they have or don't have. I think that's really important to make sure that you're going into an environment where you're set up for success and that you don't constantly feel like you're on the back foot having to fight for that space. And I think one of the key reasons that made me wanted to apply for Beta and subsequently Accenture strategy was that one of the women that was working there at the time said there was a week where she wore the same thing every day of the week to see what would happen, because in her previous job she'd had comments about, you know, someone saying, oh, you should do more about your hair, or oh, you should dress a bit nicer or something like that. And so when she started working at this place, she thought, I wonder what I'm going to get here. And so she wore the same thing every day for a week, or the same outfit every day for a week, and no one commented on it. And so at the end of the week she said, did you guys notice that I wore the same dress every day? And they were like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, no, was I meant to? And so they indicated to her, she's like, okay, like, that's a good sign. So I think that would be my advice if, you know, once you're kind of getting to the end of uni is be really upfront and demanding about that kind of stuff, and make sure that you're choosing places that are setting women up for success.
That was some great advice there, and I suppose the takeaway is to network with other people and ask the right questions. And that was a great anecdote about what you found out from a colleague. That's going to stay with me for sure. Thank you for our panelists. We're now going to open the floor for networking. So before we do that, I would like to quickly introduce our sponsor reps for the night. So Esther, if you could please spotlight our sponsor reps. Well, actually, I can do that myself. No worries. I'd like to first introduce Nancy, who's here from Jane Street. Nancy, would you like to do a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Since this is the first time I'm speaking, can I just check you can hear me and everything? Yeah, great. Okay, cheers. So I work at a company called Jane Street. We're a trading firm with 3 offices around the world. And even though I'm originally from Sydney, I'm actually calling here from the London or not office, because a lot of us work from home. But yeah, so I'm working for Jane Street London. So I've been here as a trader for 3 years. And before that, I actually went to uni in the UK. So I've been living in the UK sort of for quite a while. And I also studied maths at uni.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. And our next representative is from IMC Trading, Katie Healy. Would you like to introduce yourself, please, Katie?
Hey, yeah, my name's Katie. I work at IMC Trading, and IMC Trading is a trading company like Jane Street, where Nancy works. I'm in the Sydney office, so I'm in the office right now, and I picked a meeting room, and it's really bad because I keep like disappearing into the background. Yeah, so I am from Sydney, grew up in Sydney, went to uni in Sydney, and now I'm still in Sydney, so it's super boring. But I have been at IMC for a bit over 1.5 years, and I studied maths at uni as well.
Awesome. And our representative from Akuna Capital is also here. Liz, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Liz. I grew up in Byron, went to uni in Brisbane, worked as a risk analyst for a bit, and then went traveling for a couple of years. And now I've been working for Akuna Capital, which is another trading firm. It's actually good to see other female traders. We're quite rare.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so I've been here for about 3 months, and yeah, love it so far.
Awesome. So Esther, if you can please open the breakout rooms, that'll be great. So when these open, all the panelists and our representatives will get like an invite to a breakout room. So just click join, and then all other attendees will have a choice of which room to join.